Support for Carolina Business Review provided by Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health is a not-for-profit group of hospitals and medical clinics caring for surrounding communities. Their nurses, physicians, and staff are nationally recognized for their remarkable devotion to patient care. And by Sonoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
You don't read or hear many heroic or sexy stories about the traditional manufacturing business, let alone textiles or the furniture business. The fact is, you don't have to look too hard to find bona fide successes and evidence that that style of manufacturing is far from ambulatory. You are watching the most widely watched source for Carolina business and public policy. I'm Chris William, and later on this installment of Carolina Business Review, a fifth-generation furniture builder who is back at it, North Carolinian Bruce Cochrane.
Major funding also by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte, enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, who's responsible for rising healthcare costs. Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This edition of Carolina Business Review was recorded October 7th, 2011. On this week's program, John Silvia of Wells Fargo, Hal Johnson from the Upstate SC Alliance, and special guest Bruce Cochrane, President and CEO of Lincolnton Furniture Company. Now, Chris William.
Hello, welcome to our program. Hal, John, good to have you both here.
Thank you.
Great to be here.
Welcome back. Happy fall. And a little happy. We got a good good employment number.
Yes, we did.
Good unemployment number.
Yeah.
I guess not really. So, John, tell us,
Sure.
what is it about the employment number right now, and what is this thing that we have about employment? I mean, certainly it's high, and I don't mean to downplay that, but are we looking at the wrong things about employment and unemployment? And tell us what the current number was and why it's good or bad.
Sure. Today's employment number was up over 100,000, but over the last 3 months, the average employment gain has been 96,000. And the reason we look at employment, I think for two different reasons, Chris. One, employment tells us a lot about personal income. And what we see is with the job gains plus wage gains, personal income is improving. Second, when we look at jobs, that's a major input to production of any goods or service. So once jobs are improving, it's a signal that overall output in the U.S. economy is improving as well. And so those signals suggest that the economy continues to move ahead. We don't have a double-dip recession on our hands. I know for a lot of people it's pretty modest growth, not as strong as they would like, but it still is growth.
And to highlight this, you've been saying no double dip.
That's right.
Since the beginning of this quote-unquote recovery.
Right, tough times. It is tough times. I mean, growth is maybe 1.5%, 2% on average for the U.S. economy. It is tough, but there are a lot of people who are just making it work.
Hal, aren't high unemployment numbers good for folks that are looking to start business and looking for qualified people and having a good labor pool? Isn't that a good thing right now?
Well, it works two ways. One, it tells them that there is a workforce available. Two, it also allows us to try to catch up to that job number that's out there. So you have to remember, not only are there a lot of jobs available, but they're available for two reasons. We're making up for a manufacturing base that's not there, either for productivity improvements or offshoring, and an increased population base that we have to the regions. And when you think about the increased population base, whether it's the Carolinas, the entire Southeast as a whole, has seen significant double-digit population growth. So not only are we trying to make up for the jobs that we lost, but we have to fill the jobs that are coming with new people coming in. So yeah, those numbers are good for companies that are looking, but we got to make sure that the skill sets are there.
Hal, I want to stay with you, and let's talk about economic development specific to your industry. Recently, Continental Tire announced that they would be adding to a plant, adding to a distribution of close to a $500 million investment in Sumter County, South Carolina, down there near Goose Creek and that other little town, Charleston, down there. Kiddingly about that, but you know the point about this is, and it came at the loss to it came to a loss to North Carolina. The politics in North Carolina boiled over into a very public dispute between governor, Speaker of the House, and became quite an acute issue when it came to politics. As an adjacent state to North Carolina, this, you know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but does that say good things about North Carolina? Does that say that North Carolina is open for business to folks that are looking to relocate, or is that not petty politics, but certainly partisan politics?
Well, certainly from the way we do economic development and the way North Carolina does economic development, it's two different strategies. One has to be aired out in North Carolina. It's almost a political gamesmanship, if you will, to give coverage for the legislature to be able to get the votes. In South Carolina, we're a relatively small state, and we try to make sure we have the players on the ground to close the deals. Now, I will tell you, when Illinois announced that they were raising their corporate income tax, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, everybody was up there saying, hey, our income tax rate is lower. So we're all going to leverage opportunities in order to win deals. And so in economic development is a fierce competition. We're still neighbors. I would say that at the end of the day, the company's going to make the decision on where it feels most comfortable that it can get the greatest return on investment.
John, was that a gracious loss for North Carolina?
Well, competition is good, Chris. I mean, that's what we need to understand. It's one of the reasons why states compete in a lot of different areas, because that keeps you honest in terms of what you're doing in your state. And as was suggested earlier, for a long time, a lot of states up north put on a lot of regulations, a lot of taxes, a lot of mandates, and found out that they priced themselves out of the marketplace. And probably for the last 30 or 40 years, we've seen this big migration of jobs and opportunities and production to more of the southern tier. And we saw that really a great example is the auto industry. So I think state competition in these areas is very constructive.
NLRB, National Labor Relations Board, brought suit against the state of South Carolina, brought suit against South Carolina. And Boeing actually was named I got that wrong, but brought suit against Boeing for moving jobs specifically for the point to punish labor and unions. That is still being decided, but that NLRB versus Boeing and versus South Carolina on a more the spirit of the issue, has that been a wet blanket for economic development? No.
Matter of fact, if anything, I think people across the United States and around the world see that South Carolina is serious about taking care of the industry and the manufacturing base and business as a whole. We believe in our right to work status. We absolutely stand beside it from every point. And the fact that there's even an issue and the way I think we've handled it as a state demonstrates to the rest of the world, if you want to be in a place that's going to stand by its business from a labor standpoint, South Carolina is a great place to be.
John, in the last minute,
sure.
Is the American Jobs Act that President Barack Obama is pushing, is this a good act? Is this the right thing to do right now as an economist?
Well, as an economist, parts of it are very, very positive. The challenge we always have, Chris, and something you and I have talked about before, is can you create permanent jobs with a temporary tax break?
And can you?
No.
No.
The answer is no, because an employer bringing somebody on board in 6 months or a year still has to deal with that employee. And is that person productive for the wages that you have to pay or the benefits as well? And that is the great challenge, is we're trying to create permanent jobs in the United States, not temporary jobs. And we saw these temporary jumps when we had first-time homebuyer credit, cash for clunkers. It all gave us a temporary high in terms of economic growth, and we looked like we were doing well, but once those programs gone, what happened? The economy slowed down once again. We're in the challenge of creating permanent jobs, and we really need to focus on that rather than just temporary programs.
You know, and I know you'd like to wade in on that one, but we're not going to have time for
Oh,
you, Hal, on
golly,
that.
I could.
You know, I know you'd like to, but you talk about creating jobs. Our guest has an idea to create jobs, and we're going to find out why. Next week on our program, and he has been here before, John McConnell, the entrepreneur that has started and, in fact, owns some some marquee golf courses here in the Carolinas. John McConnell of McConnell Golf. What is his growth strategy? Where is he going? And then in 2 weeks, from Kewanee Scientific, the CEO, Bill Shoemaker, will be here. The most obvious question for someone like our special guest is, after 5 generations of making furniture and then selling the business 15 years ago, why are you getting back in? What do you see? Joining us now is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Lincolnton, North Carolina-based Lincolnton Furniture, Bruce Cochrane. Bruce, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Chris. Glad to be here.
Bruce, you know, this is not your first time around in this business of furniture making, and here you are. You got out 15 years ago. You're a consultant. You're doing pretty well. You're traveling a lot, but now you're back in the business, and you want to manufacture furniture in North Carolina. That's almost a novel idea. What do you see out there?
Well, I see opportunities as far as the prices in China are rising due to some of the labor issues that they have over there, not only in furniture, but in all consumer goods. And the gap has narrowed from what China could make a product for, other countries in Asia, and what we could make it for, especially with the state-of-the-art technology that we have available to us now. It's a real game changer when you look at some of these multi-purpose machines that not only reduce labor, but increase productivity exponentially compared to what we had 15 years ago.
So, you know, Bruce, you probably sit on a lot of panels, you're in groups like this, and you talk about theory around business and what you would do, but you really are betting your fortune, your family's money, on the fact that there is a swing now from the cost of labor, and we were all worried about all those jobs going on overseas, China, South America. But you're betting that you can make a product cheaper here in the United States.
I don't know if I can make it cheaper. I know I can make it better using traditional cabinet joinery and solid oak and solid cherry and solid maple with Green Guard waterborne finishes by Valspar, very safe to the environment. The Appalachian hardwood, sustainable hardwood story. So, you know, I know that we can do that, and I know we can be very competitive because you don't see those kind of products coming out of Asia. I don't want to overgeneralize because there are some good products there, but you know, we'll guarantee our product for a lifetime. Solid wood, made in America, guaranteed for life. It's a very compelling story.
John?
I mean, I love the story. Competitiveness is a multifaceted thing. And I've always, as an economist, really objected to this argument that you're just going to produce something because you have cheap labor. Talk to me about the cost of labor, the productivity of labor, and especially in your area, trying to deliver a very quality good, and therefore quality control matters as well.
We have an opportunity to utilize lots and lots of good, talented, educated people that are unemployed or underemployed in Lincolnton and the surrounding area that have terrific experience. And they're readily available, eager to join us with this new initiative. And you know, that's really important to me. That's the location, to be in that significant labor pool that you know, back 15 years ago it would be unheard of to run 3 shifts in a furniture factory. But we have a core of machines that will actually run those machines 24 hours a day. And you know, there's people that are willing to work that third shift and second shift.
Great.
Crafted with pride in the USA. Roger Milliken, I was a product of that company coming right out of school. How does that help you in your market?
It's very, very important. A year ago, Made in America was an important narrative. As I travel around the United States over the past 3 or 4 months, I found that it's more important than ever, that people are actually looking for those Made in America tags in the furniture retailers. They're looking for Made in American apparel. But you know, you got to think about this. If you're going to buy a shirt that's made in the United States for $100 or made in Asia for $50, what are you going to do? You're going to buy the $50 shirt. But if you can buy a $60 shirt made in the USA versus a $50, what are you going to do then? It makes it a lot easier. And that's that's where we see ourselves going. And as time goes on, the price gap will continue to narrow.
You know, anybody that's ever been to the High Point Furniture Market or Hickory Furniture Mart or any of those places in kind of the Central Valley, if you will, of North Carolina when it comes to furniture making and selling, you know, it's a little confounding to buy a piece of furniture and have to wait 2 months for that. I've always wondered why such lag time, and is that part of the formula for Lincolnton furniture, that you're going to take advantage of a convenience factor and get it done and shipped?
Absolutely. I mean, everything that we make will be made to order. We won't have any stock. The old traditional way of having cuttings of furniture and stocking them and then deliver them, it just doesn't work. Everything that we order that'll be ordered will be actually scheduled the same day it's ordered, and our anticipated shipping time from the time we receive an order till the time we ship it will be 30 days or less. And people are waiting for a long time for furniture from China now. When back in the early 2000s, the typical shipping time from China would be 80 to 90 days from the time of receipt of order. And now we're seeing 130 to 150 days and more. And that's a real game changer too, not just the technology that we have, but the inability of the Chinese to really deliver. And that's symptomatic of the labor issues that they have over there right now.
Bruce, why couldn't you do that before? 15 years ago or 20 years ago, when you were in the furniture business, why couldn't you turn quicker?
You know, that's a good question, Chris, and I don't have a good answer for it. I do know reflectively that our industry, once the decision was made to start that migration of manufacturing to Asia, it was almost like a drug, and everybody wanted to do it. And I was a consultant at the time, and I knew how to do it, and I helped people take their business and move it all to Asia. And there wasn't a lot of thoughtfulness. There wasn't a lot of thought put on what can we do to compete. There were people like a John Bassett at Von Bassett up in Virginia and Galax. I mean, he stood the course, and it cost him, but he's doing very, very well now. And he figured it out. You know, he can deliver a product in 7 days. And you know, I look at him as a great American, a great individual in the furniture industry.
Cool. No, I just think the whole discussion emphasizes the multifaceted nature of this business in terms of, you know, looking at productivity of the worker versus the wages, marketing. Again, one of the keys, as you mentioned, Chris, was just making sure that people get the delivery, and quality control, I think, is very important. That's a big package. Who did you bring on board with the experience to give you all those aspects?
My father always told me from the time I started working for him was that it's not about making furniture, it's about the people that make the furniture. And to be able to reach out to these people that I've known and actually worked at Cochrane Furniture, very experienced, our HR manager, a lady that I've known for 30 years, our purchasing manager, another lady that worked at Cochrane for over 30 years. One of my partners is an experienced furniture manufacturer. We've brought on board some really talented people that are forward thinking. You know, my partner said, you don't want to start a furniture factory and use 15-year-old technology, because I wanted to do some things that were a little different from what he wanted to do. And he said, let's do it. Let's fit this factory with the technology that's available today. And he convinced me in about 2 days that the way it would be with these multi-purpose machines and setting up a manufacturing facility and a process and taking advantage of the process and the machinery to deliver the quality and the proper finishing. You know, you can't inspect quality, you know that. You can't expect it into the product. It has to be a mentality. People have to have the initiative to do it. And we've got those people at Lincolnton Furniture.
Mm-hmm. Productivity we hear about it all the time, but for the average American out there, tell us the difference in the productivity of a facility today versus a facility of yesteryear.
That's a good question, because we were talking about that the other day. When I initially started this thought process about a year and a half ago, I was thinking in terms of 250 employees, maybe more than that, to be able to hit our projected numbers. now we're at 131. So it's almost half. But I was thinking in a traditional sense, traditional machinery, traditional ways to operate, traditional processes. But that's the difference between the Germans and the Italians. You look at their factories, and you know, they'll say, "What do you see in this factory that's impressive to you?" And I say, "Well, there's no people here." They do it. Their productivity is so much higher than ours because it has to be. Right. And that's the kind of model that we want for the higher productivity. Employ the right people, pay them a good wage, and have great expectations from them.
And you know, Bruce, we were talking off camera before, and we've had Jay Reardon from Hickory Chair on here, and he seems to be someone that can reach down into the organization and make the folks that work with him and for him empowered. So how do you make sure that that line guy in the third shift really feels like he has an equity ownership in that furniture that's going out the back of the store?
It's simple. You just treat people the way they want to be treated and give them credit where credit is due. And if you talk to people that worked at Cochrane Furniture years and years ago, they'll say it was like a family atmosphere. My father knew everybody, knew the children. My Uncle Jerry, who's still alive, they took a personal interest in the people, not only the people but their families. And you have to have that. You can't just treat people as an operator. And that's the kind of atmosphere that I want to have. And I believe that's the kind of atmosphere that Jay Reardon has in his company, and he's very much admired.
In the last few minutes of the program, don't want to put you on a political hot seat, so I hope you don't think that, but we were talking in the beginning of the program about the loss of Continental Tire and moving down to Sumter County, South Carolina for adding to a plant down there and to make tires. In North Carolina has had a very public, contentious political debate about who lost it. There's been a lot of political finger pointing. Why did you decide to stay in North Carolina? Why wouldn't you consider a plant in South Carolina?
The facility that we're moving into was an excellent facility. It was the one that we manufactured in before, and there were fixtures there that were very important to us. There were air makeup units. There was a lot of stainless steel finishing storage tanks, a lot of stainless steel lines, conveyor belts, very expensive conveyor belts, and carts. Not that we could have gotten those. We could have gotten those things in South Carolina, but more importantly, it comes back to the people. You have to have the right people. And if you were talking about the politics of it, I think working with the state government, what I sense is some paralysis there because of the contentiousness and the uncertainty. These agencies seem to work in a very atmosphere of ambiguity and uncertainty, and it's paralyzing to a certain degree.
We've got about a minute and a half left, and let's just at least touch on this. Capital.
Yes.
Financing. Has it been easy to find financing?
It's been very, very difficult. There's lots of money out there.
Is it through loans? Are you looking for private equity? Are you doing family money? How does it work? Our model was to raise some private equity on a private equity offering of 50 investors or less, and then have a debt financing element for equipment. And the local bank in Lincolnton, North Carolina, Carolina Trust Bank, really stepped up to the plate. Good friend of mine. He had actually worked at Cochrane Furniture as a young man, and so he knew the furniture industry. He knew our experience of the group that we put together. And without him, this would have been a very, very difficult project. And I think these community banks are going to be the key to the emergence of new jobs and new industries coming in, and startups especially. A startup, although we were a restart, we knew what we were doing. This isn't our first rodeo, but the big banks, they didn't know us. All they knew is we were a startup. And we've got 30 seconds. The interesting thing is John Medlin, former chairman of Wachovia, was on this program talking about we don't make character loans anymore, but that sounds a lot like a character loan from Carolina Trust, which seems to be needed, but wish we had more time. Bruce, thank you for being on the program.
Thank you, Chris. I've enjoyed it a great deal, and thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Hal, good to see you.
Great
Thanks
to see
for coming
you, Chris.
up. Always nice to see you. John, what can I say? So I won't. Nice to see you, John. Thank you for watching. Until next week, I'm Chris Woodham. Good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte, enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, who's responsible for rising healthcare costs. Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health is a not-for-profit group of hospitals and medical clinics caring for surrounding communities. Their nurses, physicians, and staff are nationally recognized for their remarkable devotion to patient care. And by Sonoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.com.